Welcome to the Williamsburg City Council meeting of December 14th. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rogers?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey?
Here.
Mayor Pons?
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Here.
Ms. Kernshire? Here.
Okay, thank you. You all have in your packets the minutes from, I guess we don't have any minutes to approve, so we'll skip that. And we have no special privilege matters. It takes us right to public hearings, so we'll jump right into this. First is a public hearing, PCR number 23-024, consideration and action regarding the request to amend the design review guidelines, adding chapters for outdoor seating dining. Ms. Griffin.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons. The city, on behalf of the Architecture Review Board, is submitting an amendment to the design review guidelines by adding a chapter that will speak to outdoor seating and dining in our downtown area. This is going to support the GIO of creating a modern city. This GIO has been talked about before. Uri Adams has come up and talked you all through that, and you also, several meetings ago, approved your first lease agreement. And I think today you'll also look at a second. This GIO is really to convert the successful temporary outdoor dining program along Prince George Street to a permanent solution. And one thing that we thought should happen is that you should have design guidelines for those bump outs. In the planning world, we call those bump outs parklets. So if I talk and say parklets, I'm talking about the bump outs on Prince George Street. In looking at the design guidelines, one thing that staff realizes that we also should look at sidewalk cafes. Sidewalk cafes are now in Chapter 15 of the City Code, and it does say that any design of sidewalk cafes go to the ARB. But the ARB has been using the design guidelines in general to make decisions on that. And so we thought that maybe we should provide some specific guidance for sidewalk cafes when it comes to design. And right now, Chapter 15 allows outdoor dining, specifically sidewalk cafes along Prince George Street, lying between North Henry Street on the east and Armistead Avenue on the west, and also on Duke of Gloucester Street between Henry Street on the east and the intersection of Jamestown Road, Boundary, and Richmond Road on the west. I'm going to give a brief overview of Prince George Street. This has been done before, but for those who may not have seen this, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a indoor seating restrictions, and those indoor seating restrictions had us to call an emergency order, and this was done throughout the Commonwealth, and it allowed outdoor seating to be on the public right-of-way. This outdoor seating was allowed temporarily, and now we want to bring those businesses into compliance and to be able to actually have outdoor seating on our public right-of-way in the parklets. And we do know several things went well. It activated the street, it increased seating and serving capacity, and it also increased revenue during the pandemic. And we know that because we've been told that by one of the restaurants that actually uses the outdoor seating now. What we've done in order to prepare for the outdoor dining seating guidelines is we did an in-house design, we did research best practices, and we also held stakeholder meetings with the business owners and the property owners on Prince George Street. And that was done earlier this year. And then the ARB has had 3 meetings to review and consider public input. We did have public input. I've talked to one of those persons who provided some input one-on-one, and most of their comments were incorporated into the guidelines that are before you today. We also had some input from a landlord on Prince George Street concerning the design guidelines, and those were also incorporated into the draft guidelines you have. And on October 24th, the ARB did approve the guidelines. And today you do have Chairman Spence and Mr. Bob Ewell. If you have any questions for them, they're happy to answer them in regards to the recommendations. And I won't go through all of the guidelines, but I did want you to see here what has been laid out in the guidelines. They're very specific. They're very thorough. I was thinking we would pass them in one fell swoop, but after the first night, I knew that wasn't going to happen, so we had 2 more meetings. And In that particular chapter, you have the application and the procedures. You have the outdoor dining configuration where the seating can be allowed, the barriers, what can be around the seating, and then the measurements, the materials, the colors, the furniture. Right now, there are, as you can see on the 500 block, there are furniture is there now. That furniture was allowed under the temporary allowance or the temporary restrictions that were put in place during COVID, and now those seating and furniture would have to be approved before the ARB in order for them to be able to keep that. The guidelines also look at shade structures, and this includes pergolas and umbrellas, lighting, and heating options. Again, I can go through these specifically if you have any questions, and also you have the two members from the ARB here. Staff is recommending approval of the guidelines, and on November the 15th, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve PCR 23024. And staff is recommending the same. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Does any member of council have any questions?
Thank you so much. I do have two questions.
Sure.
Just want to make clear as to where these guidelines would apply. Is it
Yes.
like on the chart, on the slide that you had, you mentioned the Prince George Street between, are those the areas we're talking about? I'm really talking about just like where do these,
Yes.
are these going to apply?
So the sidewalk cafes that I mentioned and along Armistead, Prince George boundary, and also the 500 and 400 block of Prince George Street.
Okay, and then the next question, the only other question I had was just a question of when is this prospectively going forward? Now these are going to any kind of new change. Like, how does the effectiveness of the effective date of this, if you will, like
Yes.
going forward, something now is going to have to change because of these changes, or is there some sort of grandfathering? I'm just trying to get a sense.
No,
of
there is no grandfathering.
Okay.
So if you all approve the guidelines today, they will then be in effect. We'll place them in our ARB guidelines, and they will be effective then, and we will reach out to the property owners. We've already actually had a property owner submit something to the ARB, and we've put that on hold until we've gotten these guidelines in place. Does that answer?
It does, yeah. I was kind of thinking about the transition plan, if you will, between what's there now and using these guidelines. So no, I don't have any other questions. Just really appreciate the amount of community input, stakeholder input, that obviously this is a very thorough process, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one sort of follow-up question. And you mentioned that these would encompass like Prince George Street. So these would be in effect for any other areas that might be approved for parklets or outdoor cafes as well.
That's true. Right now, the parklets are only approved for the 400 and 500 block of Prince George Street. In the future, if City Council would approve more parklets, then this would also be effective for those.
Thank you.
No questions from me either. I see this as really the standardization of regulation around these. At one point, what thought were to be temporary structures that have become very permanent, and I think very successful here. So, no, I have no additional questions, and thank you for formalizing their permanence in Williamsburg.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. So with that, I'll open the public hearing and ask that if anybody would like to come forward and speak to this matter, please do so. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to council. I would agree with some of what I heard here. I'm very appreciative that ARB took several meetings to fully vet this, soliciting public input, and glad that there was some, and that we were able to incorporate that input into what's being proposed today. And certainly, I think bringing what's already out there in compliance with zoning is important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin, and to the ARB. Again, very thorough guidelines. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity that you provided for stakeholder input and take their comments into consideration. And again, to standardize what we have, but I always look back at this and say this is one thing that we had positive out of the pandemic, is that we created the outdoor seating opportunity. Maybe something that should have been looked at before the pandemic, but we certainly It certainly made a big difference now, so thank you.
Thank you. No additional comments.
Same for me. Appreciate the very thorough review and the incorporation of this into our other ARB guidelines.
I agree.
Okay, somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council approve PCR 23-024.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Thank you. Item B under public hearings is a public hearing for consideration and action regarding the proposal Resolution 23-21 for a long-term license agreement with Big T RSL, Inc. for a portion of Prince George Street sidewalk at 515 Prince George Street for outdoor dining at the Houndstail Restaurant. Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor Pons and members of City Council, for allowing me some time on today's agenda to share an update regarding outdoor dining on Prince George Street. So as Ms. Griffin just mentioned, this is a GIO under Innovating a Modern City in which staff was charged with determining a way to convert a temporary outdoor dining on Prince George Street to a permanent solution. The city's public works crew did a really great job completing the construction of the bump outs along the 500 block of Prince George Street, and we are ready to move forward with leasing the spaces to private businesses. As a reminder, the outdoor dining area for Amber Ox was completed first, and that license was approved by City Council in October. Here is what the outdoor dining area looked like before the construction was completed. And here is a rendering of what they look like now. As reported at your October meeting, we heard some concerns from the businesses about safety for the diners on the bump outs. And we were then in the process of taking planters, as you see in the rendering, before the ARB for approval. We have received approval for those items, and they have been purchased. Our Public Works landscaping crew anticipates that they should be out and planted on the bump outs before the end of this calendar year. As noted in your agenda packet, I'm here before you today with a request that City Council approved proposed Resolution 23-21 and the long-term license agreement with Big T RSL, who does business as the Houndstail, which will last 5 years beginning January 1st, 2024. Again, as a reminder, the bump outs are leased to the businesses at $5 a square foot. The Houndstail bump out is 742 square feet, which equates to $3,710 annually. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Adams?
Just have one area on the fee levied to Houndstail or Big T each year. And I sort of take that to mean there's now, especially with those planters, a little bit of maintenance that goes into them, or just regular care, right, and keeping them sightly. Is that generally what's thought of for that $3,700 per year, the usefulness of it?
The $3,700 is a fee for the use of the bump out itself, for the businesses to use it for their private purposes, for the profit of their business. The landscaping crew will be covering the care for those plants. So spring, summer, fall annuals will be going in each year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing and again ask and offer the opportunity for anybody to come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and come back to council. I think it's a great idea. Look forward to the Houndstail being able to offer another unique opportunity for folks to dine at the restaurant, so I certainly support it. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Yuri. No questions.
Questions? Thank you.
No questions for me either.
No comments? All right. Well, is there a motion?
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 23-21 for the long-term license agreement with Big T RSL, Inc.
Second?
Okay.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay. Takes us to item C, which is consideration and approval of resolution number 23-25, a concurrent resolution with James City County and York County to form the Historic Triangle Recreational Facility Alliance. Mr. Trivett.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. Today, we are asking you to reconsider a resolution that you first took under advisement about 2 years ago when we formed the HTRFA. And that resolution stipulated the concurrence and agreement with state code, as well as naming the official members of the board. And when we did that adoption, there were some changes made to the resolution between the three localities participating, and the state code requires that they be the same. And so today's action is to clarify that, as well as to make it much more clear as to who is appointed to the HDRFA and how that mechanism works. So this is really just a housekeeping issue related to the establishment of the authority.
Thank you. And just to be clear, so it's really just, re-point out what you just said, naming the folks that are on there, and then also we're going through this process to make sure that we're in compliance with the state code, which requires us to each three members to have the same resolution.
Yep, that's right.
Questions?
No questions.
No questions.
None for me.
With that, we'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to council for conversation, comments, motion.
Yeah, it just seems like it's compliance, and so I move that City Council adopt Resolution 23-25 as drafted.
Second.
Okay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay, takes us to item 6 on the agenda under reports is first the monthly financial statement. Ms. Dameron. Welcome.
Thank you and good afternoon. Want to start with just a few brief highlights, starting with the general fund revenue. Real estate and property tax revenues are trailing behind last year as of November. However, as we move into December, we see that catch up. Business license has increased by 58% or $86,000 compared with last year. Recordation tax increased by 82% or $95,000 compared to last year. Hotel and motel tax, which last month in October was trailing the previous year by about a decrease of 6.6%. As of November, we see an increase of 10.8% or $132,000 compared to last year. And meals taxes increased 6.2% or $179,000 compared to last year. This is notable because the majority of those taxes stay in our general fund, and they help reduce the reliance on our real estate tax to support the goods and services that are provided. And these also have an impact on our business license too, because as that revenue stream increases, it tends to increase our business license. 599 funds are at about 47% less than the revenue received last year, but this is a timing difference, and we should see this catching up as we move through the year. Categorical aid for streets and sidewalks has increased about 18% or $94,000 compared with last year. Our general fund expenditures are in line with the budget, and revenues that are reported in the other funds in the CIP fund, our sales tax increased 5.5% or $79,000 compared with last year. In the tourism fund, the city's share of the historic sales tax increased 16.6% or $102,000 compared to the previous year. And the $2 lodging tax has increased about 5.7%, which equates to about $18,000. That concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. Yeah.
Yes, no questions. Thank you, Ms. Dameron.
No questions. Thank you.
No questions. I just think it's really gratifying, particularly to see the lodging tax increase, because as we have heard, that took the biggest hit from COVID, and so it's nice that it's coming back. And when you mentioned that the meals tax and the lodging tax really help supplement our general fund, that's the 5% meals tax and the 5% lodging tax.
5% lodging tax,
Right.
yes.
So, thank you.
No questions. Thank you, Director Dameron.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do we have any departmental operating reports this month?
No, in the interest of time, we'll postpone the finance report that we had planned until February. Or, I'm sorry, January. I skipped a month.
City managers report, anything?
None today.
Nothing today.
Okay. Takes us now to open forum, which again is an opportunity for anyone to come forward. I do have 3 speakers cards, so I will go to them first. And first we have Karen Spearling. Welcome. If you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Karen Sperling. So is anyone excited for Christmas? I know I am. It's a good time, but the oldest Christian community in the world, in Bethlehem and Nazareth and Jerusalem, are not able to celebrate Christmas this year because they have been systematically, ethnically cleansed by Israel during the past 2 months, along with every other person in Palestine. Every woman, child, Muslim, Christian, atheist, even Palestinian Jews have all faced extreme, it is a genocide. Let's call it what it is. It is a genocide perpetrated by the Israeli government. They are not able to celebrate Christmas, and the Bethlehem baby is stuck under the rubble. We cannot look away from this. You may think that at local government, there's not much, you may not have any power, like what can you do? But I believe that every level of government must be involved and must call for a ceasefire in Palestine. I urge you to join the dozens of other cities and municipalities across the United States that have called for a ceasefire when the U.S. government would not. It would not listen to its citizens. It would not listen to humanity. It would not listen to any morality. On December 8th, the U.S. vetoed a ceasefire in the UN Security Council that would have released all the hostages, all the Israeli hostages, the Palestinian hostages. It would have stopped the ceasefire. It would have stopped the siege and the blockade in Gaza that stops all food, water, medical supplies, humanitarian aid, everything from entering Gaza and contributing to the genocide of the Palestinian people. This Christmas, I urge you to think about those who cannot celebrate, and I urge you to support a ceasefire with every bone and soul in your body. I urge you to do everything you can so when your grandchildren and your children ask you, what did you do when there was a genocide? What did you do during the Holocaust? You can say that you stopped it and that you did everything you could. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker's card we have is Connor Denler.
Hello. Thank you for giving me the chance to come up here and speak. I'm a student, over at the College of William and Mary, and I am here today to kind of, plead maybe is not the correct word that I'm looking for, but ask earnestly each and every one of you before me to do what you can with the power afforded to you as respected members of the City Council of Williamsburg to call for a permanent ceasefire in occupied Palestine. Over 17,000 civilians have at this point been murdered, and over 30% of those have been children. When I look at these children and when I hear these reports, I see my younger siblings, I see my neighbors, I see my neighbors' kids, and I see my parents and grandparents. The scale of death that we are seeing unfold right now at the hands of the Israeli military is frankly unparalleled, and to try to conceptualize it is to try to think of entire families and multiple generations wiped out in the span of an hour and a half. That I mean, frankly, it's just horrifying to picture, and something that we have to do whatever is in our power to interrupt and stop. And so I'm here before you guys today just as an individual college student, down the street. I live over on Scotland Street, and I've very much come to enjoy my time in this town, and I'm here today to ask that you guys unequivocally use the positions of power afforded to you to call for a ceasefire in Palestine. There are children whose lives can still be saved if we all apply the maximum pressure that we can to make sure that people know that the people of the United States are calling for a ceasefire. So I want to thank you guys very much, and I hope that you take these words to heart and let them inform your next actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker's card I have is Ron Kirkland of the Hotel Association.
Mayor Pons, members of council, Mr. Trivett. Good afternoon. My name is Ron Kirkland, Executive Director of the Williamsburg Hotel Motel Association, 1001A Richmond Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I don't have anything particularly groundbreaking to share, but I would like to extend my sincere gratitude. Over the years, we have been involved in this indoor sports complex project, and City Council, you've really been just great. All of you have been thoughtful, engaged, and dedicated to getting it right. And I know our membership and me personally are really appreciative of you and the staff, particularly Mr. Trivett and Ms. Hutton in the back. They've been excellent partners. Even, Mr. Trivett, you'll have to forgive me for constantly complaining about pumping the brakes. But seriously, thank you both. And as much as I could go on and on and on about how wonderful council is, and sometimes the mayor enjoys that a little too much, so briefly, I'll just say your leadership and commitment to this deal is what I think we all hope for in our elected leaders. And thank you probably isn't enough, but I'll say it again. Thank you all. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all the speakers' cards I have, but the podium's still open if anybody would like to come forward to speak on any matter. Seeing none, I'll close the open forum and we'll move forward in the agenda to unfinished business. First is item A, consideration and approval of the construction management services contract with MBP for the police department building. Mr. Chief Dunn.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. Today's matter is related to your GIO for Innovating a Modern City. As you know, on October the 12th, you approved the comprehensive agreement for the police station, the construction of the new police station. And today's matter involves the signing of the contract with MBP for the construction management for the building of the new police department. So my ask is that you authorize the city manager to execute the construction management contract with MBP for the construction of a new police station for a fixed fee of $387,129.
Thank you. Chief, while you're there, where are we in the process in terms of ultimately picking a spot, a design, and in the timeline?
So I think we're tracking towards some sort of a groundbreaking ceremony in February. We are looking right now currently at where the best location on that footprint would be for the site. It's been evaluated twice. Well, it's been evaluated a number of times already. And we prior to even putting it out for bid, our folks with Guernsey Tingle helped us to identify what they felt like the best site would be based on the underground infrastructure. And then more recently, when we put that out, we offered wherever you think on this site would be most appropriate. And Henderson, as you know, came back with this particular location that was originally identified by Guernsey Tingle. We now are looking at whether or not there might be some possibility to shift it around on that site, but there is certainly a lot of underground utilities, which is what really prompted us to be at the exact location that we're at now. So any movement, I think, would have, again, and we don't have the numbers back at this point, but any movement is going to require some cost.
Gotcha. And has the ARB weighed in on this yet?
Yes, sir. Well, the ARB has seen the conceptual drawing twice now, and it's favorable. We're moving forward. However, they don't have the exterior lighting plan nor the exact parameters of the site location, just an idea of the location.
Yes.
And but their comments have been very, very positive.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Just one question. This is not additional funding. This was included in the original contract for the new
Yes,
police
sir.
station.
That was approved on October the 12th. That's correct.
And my question, thank you so much. And my question is really one of process, and I'm not sure who might be the best equipped to answer it, but it would be about when might council, what is the next action perhaps by city council on the site approval or anything like that in terms of process?
There really isn't another step for city council, but the process for the plan itself and finalizing the design is underway now in the planning department. So as the chief alluded to, the ARB process is underway right now, looking at the external design, including where it might be located on the site. But even more importantly, the site-specific questions, landscaping and orientation, are being addressed by the site plan process, which is also underway in the planning department.
Okay, in the planning department. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And my only question relates to the company itself, MBP. If I remember correctly, we've had experience with this company just recently.
Yes, ma'am. Right.
And if I also remember correctly, they did an excellent job working with fire station construction.
Yeah, they've been fantastic partners, and they come highly recommended.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Dunn. I'm excited to move forward. I have one question along the lines of Councilwoman Kern-Shear, but it's more for the public. City Manager Trivett, you say that it is currently in front of the Site Plan Review Committee before ARB. Can you give us an idea, if I'm a member of the public in, let's say, the West Williamsburg Heights neighborhood, when my opportunities would be to review that site plan and give feedback?
Sure. The best opportunity is right now. Anybody can request a copy of the site plan and all the documents from the planning department. They're all public record, and we provided them to a whole host of people already. As always, when people ask what the best way to provide comment is, my answer is to send us an email. And the reason I say that is not that I'm trying to discourage people from attending public meetings like this. It's just that it's so much easier for that email to be read by everybody involved in the process than coming to a meeting and only being heard at the meeting. So that's my suggestion. There are public meetings associated with the site plan process and with the ARB that are advertised. If somebody wanted to go to a meeting, they certainly can and address the bodies then. But like I say, I think it's much more effective to just send an email.
Perfect. Thank you. Just what I was looking for. So Chief Dunn, thank you. No further questions.
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute the construction management contract with McNaughton Balliard Peck, MBP, for the construction of a new police station for a fixed fee of $387,000, $129.90.
Second?
Thank you, Ms. McKay.
Rogers.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kern-Shear.
Aye.
Thank you. Takes us to item B, consideration and action regarding the funding agreement for the Regional Sports Center. Mr. Trivett.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Today, we're asking the City Council to take another step in the journey toward the Regional Sports Center. And I'll just remind the council, this has been a project that's been under consideration for quite some time. Really, the process began in 2014 with the evaluation of a field house. And of course, since that time, the concept has evolved, both in the scope, size, and cost. And the City Council really advanced this topic as a result of an application from the Williamsburg Hotel Motel Association to our Tourism Grant Fund. And that process led to the City Council's commitment a few years ago of about $1.3 million, $1.3 million toward annual debt service for the construction of a regional sports center. At the time, it was felt like that would be approximately half of what the design and construction costs would be. And since that time, We have worked with our partners regionally, including James City County and York County, as well as the interested parties in our community, to make sure that the design of this regional sports center was really going to meet the needs of all three localities in terms of our parks recreation needs, but also be an attractant for sports tourism, which is really its primary purpose. And that has resulted in, post-COVID, a much greater cost than we originally began with. It also has resulted in my opinion, a much better designed facility that's going to be very competitive in the realm of sports tourism and be an asset that really contributes to the quality of life for all three localities. So today we are asking for you to take what I consider to be probably a final step in the journey of planning this facility and commit the remaining money needed for the capital construction, which would be an additional $1 million essentially. So adding to the 1.5 that you've already committed and taking us to $2.5 million total. That would complete the funding package. Now, that completes the capital costs, so the idea is that the HTRFA as an authority would bond this funding, and then we would be providing money to the HTRFA to meet the debt service annually. The operating side of the coin is going to be covered by the localities, we hope. The other two localities, the counties. James City County has already voted to do that, and York County is scheduled to take that vote later this month. So hopefully by the end of December, we will have commitments from all three localities, which will allow the HTRFA then at the first of the year, the first quarter of 24, to authorize the contractor, MEB, to begin construction. Which would result in a construction complete date in the first quarter of 2026 is our hope. So with that, I will ask City Council to consider the question, and of course we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, so I'll just kick this off by saying that I'm really excited about what this opportunity means for the greater Williamsburg area, working with James City County and York County to build a facility that will be kind of the next generation of tourism demand drivers for the region. I think we all recognize sports as a growing, nothing's recession-proof, but fairly recession-proof activity for sports. I mean, parents are traveling with their children more often to these types of events, and so to be able to have a facility that has been designed in a way that's going to be world-class. We've heard from Mr. Hibbets and others Monday about what's going to be included in this facility, and it just strikes me that it's going to be very, very highly sought after, and it's going to do well for our community and just kind of offering that next tourism amenity that Williamsburg is so dependent upon. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the efforts of the HTRFA and its members and our partners at James City County and York County for being a part of this process for all these many years, and certainly for the Hotel Association, which spearheaded this 2014, but really it was in consideration back in 2004 when the conversation started on this process, and so it's been a long haul. But in that process, there has been a lot of study, thought. I mean, we did 3 or 4 different feasibility studies, and I think we've gotten to a point where I can confidently make the decision to support this endeavor. So with that, I do support it, and turn to the Vice Mayor for any comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank the HTRFA and all of the partners that made this possible. As City Manager pointed out in his presentation, this has been in discussion for a number of years, and really in-depth discussions for the last few years. I know we've had a couple of requests that ask us to defer a decision or not support this project. I don't see where deferring this decision another month. I think, you know, we're at a point where we need to make a decision and either step back or move forward. As the mayor pointed out, there's been a tremendous amount of thought and discussion that's gone into this project. And one thing that I've always been proud of, not only as a member of City Council, but as a city employee, that this council and previous city councils have always taken these types of financial decisions very seriously, and looked out for the best interests of this community. And that's exactly what's happened with this project. And because of that, we still remain one of the most financially stable localities in the Commonwealth, and probably even across the country. So that's something I've always been proud of as a part of this family in the city of Williamsburg. And the pandemic is another example of how we maneuvered some financial challenges. And while we suffered some setbacks, I think we came out pretty good on the other side. And as the mayor mentioned, even though it's been many years ago, I had a son and daughter who played travel sports, and I pumped a lot of dollars into economies up and down the East Coast, following them around playing travel sports. So I understand the market there, and you know, a family environment and creating the best facility possible. So obviously you can tell from my comments that I'm in support of this project. And, you know, I think with any project like this, there are some associated risks, but I also think there's some risk if we don't move forward. There's been some concern raised that we may have to raise tax dollars to fund this project, specifically the operational cost. I'm more worried that we have to raise tax dollars because we lose our businesses because it's status quo. And I think we're at a point we have an opportunity to really have something that no one else or very few other localities have, and is going to set Williamsburg apart from those localities. So I support this project, and I'm ready to move forward.
Ms. Gernstier?
Yes, thank you, and thanks for all the work that has gone into getting everything to this point for 2014. That was a long time ago. You know, I think this is a big decision. This is a big investment, and I understand that. And, you know, so I want to say a couple things. That first was a decision this big, something that I think has, as the newest person on council coming into this past year, something that has really made an impact on me is truly seeing how behind the scenes and talking to everyone, how truly thoughtful and you know, really careful all of the decisions or just getting to this point has been. This is not something that has been, you know, oh, that sounds like a good idea, just throw it on a dartboard and see if it works. This has been discussed, you know, in so many different places in the forum here and among those working to move the project forward in a way that has impressed me with its care and thought and absolute goodwill and good intent to have something really successful in our town and for our town. And I also think that when we're talking about something to you know, this big, and it is so important to ensure that we are taking steps that, you know, will benefit our community through the tourism generation dollars or generated dollars. Something that also is important, I think, is to really think about the community benefit directly as well. That we have gotten feedback from people who live here, from community members, saying it would be really great, you know, if you know, we had more opportunities for the children basketball, to have basketball leagues and be able to expand that here in town, you know, to be able to have more facilities for community members that are here. And it would be great if we had a climbing wall, you know, and things that parents in our town, you know, have come forward and said this would be really fantastic for members of our community too. And I don't want that to be lost because that's not insignificant. In fact, I think it's an important part of this conversation. So, you know, I really have been impressed too in the support, you know, that our Parks and Rec Department sees this as a great opportunity to be able to expand what we do. And so when we have a project that can really bring together multiple interests, you know, an interest of the community members that are here that want to see more opportunities in the Parks and Rec Department, along with expanding, you know, our interest in tourism economy and making sure we're making smart decisions for the future, I think that that's a real special thing when all of those interests can align. So I think we had an amazingly productive and comprehensive discussion at Monday's work session just a few days ago that really also talked about so much of the detail and really was comprehensive in answering our questions. So I think, yeah, in other places, mistakes have been made, but that, I don't believe that we are going to make the mistakes that have been made in other places too. And I know that that could really be something that people see and say, well, it didn't work there, so it's not going to work here. And I don't believe that. I think that we're going to be able to make, and like we have been doing, make smart decisions to make this a good investment and opportunity for our town. So for those reasons, I am in support of it.
Ms. Ramsey?
I support this as well, and there's only a couple things that I'm going to add to what my colleagues have said. First of all, I agree with Ms. Kern-Shear about the discussion that we had on Monday. Having seen the pictures and hearing all about it, I became far more excited about what it was going to look like and what it would accomplish for the community. And I think we can't forget that it's actually could be a double bonus for our local residents, particularly parents. We talk about locals being able to use the facility Monday through Thursday, but also if they have children participating in tournaments, they'll be able to visit on the weekends and participate in those tournaments, as opposed to flying to Atlanta or Colorado for, say, a volleyball tournament. So I think that's an additional bonus for us. It also meets the architectural standards that we've come to expect for Williamsburg, and I think that will set it apart from others. And I also am very pleased that this is a truly regional project, having read the article in the Gazette referencing Mr. Morgan's comments and watching James City County's meeting the other night with Mr. Stevens being right on the spot with answering their questions. I truly believe that everyone has really bought into this, and it's everyone is so top on the mind with answers to questions, reasons why it will succeed, and so that really excites me. And as Vice Mayor Dent said, people have said, well, why not wait another month? I think we tend to forget that we have a big celebration, and I keep harping on this. We have a big celebration coming in 2026. And if we're lucky, we will get this project done by first quarter 2026. I think Mr. Hibbett has said that that's what they're looking for. And we need to have these legacy projects in the city completed by that deadline. If we don't hit 2026, then we've got another 50 years, and personally, I don't think I'll be around then to recognize the 300 tricentennial. So not only is there urgency for this project, but there's also urgency for my other pet project, the LPV, which we will talk about in a little bit. So yes, I'm fully in support of this.
I join my colleagues in support of this project. I feel in a way like the very end to a long line of council members and analysts who have looked at this over the last 9 years. I'm glad, Ron, that you haven't had an aneurysm in that time as we have gone through so much study. But it is a lot of that work which has been mentioned around multiple different economic analysis reviews and then actually the placemaking of this product in Williamsburg, which gives me confidence that it really can be a game changer for our community. We're very proud of our historical and our educational-based tourism opportunities here, but this does bring a unique product into Williamsburg. It was mentioned that there's just a few facilities of this size nationwide, but none with the unique characteristics of the convertible turf, the areas for younger siblings such as the climbing wall, like we will have in this facility. So I am certainly excited about the idea of a ribbon cutting to kick off 2026 and hopefully celebrations that can come from that. I've also been particularly convinced by some of those economic analyses that have said that on top of the yearly benefit this will give to both Williamsburg and York County and James City County from a tax revenue standpoint, it will be millions for the businesses in our area, the hotels in our area. We've kept bringing up the term the multiplier effect of what does it mean to create this many new jobs, but also have 40,000 affected heads in beds. That is our slang for how many nights stay people will bring to our hotels from a facility like this. So I'm excited for the benefit that also our local businesses will get. And I'll lastly say that as was mentioned on Monday, the debt service that Williamsburg takes on for this project will be covered from existing sources of tourism financing. So it was mentioned on Monday, but we on council do not look to achieve that covering of debt service by an increase in local taxes. We expect this facility to certainly be a benefit for the region, but those existing sources of funding that are already going to tourism and will be used now for this debt service will help us transition from funding events and organizations that may have been providing an ad hoc basis vibrancy to really a unique legacy project, which can be used for anything from 250th anniversaries of the country to, as was mentioned on Monday, perhaps the pickleball championship for the country. So I'm excited for both the tourism that this will bring, its benefit for the citizens of Williamsburg who are athletes or supporters, and I'm looking forward to supporting this project as well.
Thank you. Well, thank each of you for your comments in support of this. As been mentioned, it's been going on for a long time, and I'm glad that we're all ready to make a decision. So who would like to make a motion?
So I will move that City Council approve the Regional Sports Center funding agreement as drafted.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Ernstier?
Thank you. Takes us now to new business, and first is the consideration and direction to staff regarding the transmittal of the request for the HTRFA to consider the development of a live performance venue as a second project at the Colonial Williamsburg's Visitor Center site. Mr. Trivett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we hopefully get toward the closing out of one project at this site, it's time to talk about the next one. And so the City Council took a step toward this very similar to how you did the Sports Center by considering recommendations from the Tourism Development Grant Review Committee and allocated funding for debt service to help move a project along. This is the live performance venue. And so now what we'd like to do is have you take the formal step of forwarding a request to the HTRFA that consider that project next. And so all this really is housekeeping to make sure we have a paper trail of forwarding this project that the council's already committed funding to the HTRFA so that they can begin the process of review and consideration, very similar to how we've done the Sports Center, and advance it to this point, hopefully, where there is enough information for the elected bodies to decide whether or not, A, they would participate, and if so, on what kind of level.
Well, thank you. And again, we had a wonderful presentation on Monday, kind of laying out the vision for the performance venue, again, from Mr. Hibbets on Monday. But for me, it was just super exciting to see the synergy that could be achieved should this project make it through the HTRFA. A financing plan, could be developed, and the community, at least the city, buys into it and finds a way to pay for it, which is not where we are today. This is not about building it. This is about looking at if it's feasible and how we could achieve having that built in the future. And just say the word built, I think about the opportunity of having this done at the same time that the Sports Center is completed would certainly be even more transformative for the area. So I certainly look forward to sending that to the HTR.
Yeah, I have no objections, and like you stated, it's exciting, and obviously if we could make it happen to open in conjunction with the Sports Center, but there's a lot of questions and a lot of that have to be answered before we get to that point, but I'm certainly comfortable moving it forward.
Yes, I'm very comfortable with the question of the day about sending it on to HTRFA to look into. I think that's a great move, and the possibility of having a performing arts venue in the city for our that would benefit all it's an exciting opportunity. So I absolutely support moving to the next step of this process.
As do I.
Yeah, for me, the real decision on moving ahead with this facility is seeing what it looks like, what it can do for the city, and what it costs. And so this will kick off that process. So certainly in favor of moving this along.
I would like to make a motion.
So I move that City Council forward a request to the HTRFA to consider a live performance venue as a second project at the Colonial Williamsburg Visitor Center.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Thank you. Item B on the agenda is consideration and action regarding the proposed ordinance 23-07 to amend and restate Section 7-121, Article 3 of Chapter 7 of the Williamsburg Code regarding notice for wetlands and board public hearings. Ms. Shelton.
So, among many other jurisdictions in the Commonwealth, the City of Williamsburg is required to have a wetlands board that deals with development in certain wetlands in the Commonwealth. The city's Planning Commission serves as the city's wetland boards. Senate Bill 1160 amended the notice requirement for hearings before the Wetlands Board. Specifics of those are outlined in the agenda item summary. This is required by the Code of Virginia, and so the staff recommendation is that City Council adopt proposed ordinance 2307.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council adopt proposed ordinance 23-07.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Okay.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, takes us now to C, consideration and action regarding the proposed resolution 23-23 to amend and restate the cooperative service agreement with the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority. Ms. DeWitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Back in 2008, we formed the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority, and it's the 3 historic triangle localities, Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, and they entered into a cooperative service agreement to do that. And each of those entities are voting members on the WADA board. And on September 10th, 2023, the bus service in the Colonial Williamsburg historic area was turned over to WADA to become Route 15 in the system and linked to the Transportation Center, one of our GIOs that the City Council had. And this restated and amended cooperative service agreement recognizes that Colonial Williamsburg has resigned from the board, is no longer a member, also removes any provisions and mentions of the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation from the agreement, and there's a few non-substantive changes just as housekeeping, things that have changed since 2008. So the WADA board has unanimously recommended approval of this change, and we're asking you to approve the resolution to sign this amended and restated agreement.
Sounds pretty straightforward, so really it's a matter of housekeeping, so.
Good question.
I just did have a very quick question. How's the transition going with the route? I mean, this is a busy time of year, and so having, the Route 15 as part of it now, has that been a easy, smooth transition?
Great question. And our executive director of WADA, Mr. Scalia, is here with us. Matt, may I ask you to come?
Oh, well, wow, didn't know that you were here.
Welcome, Mr. Scalia.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Great question and never a dull moment for water right now since taking over, initiating Route 15. Growing pains. I'm very happy with how it started. Great planning between WADA and Colonial Williamsburg Foundation to try to make it as smooth as possible, but not without challenges, especially this time of year with the large crowds. We're not as flexible as they perhaps were in the past. We have seen challenges during Grand Illumination. I think we got a bit of a bye 2 weeks ago and the weather was not great. Crowds were slower, but this past weekend I think we did very well in surging capabilities, and we're looking to do the same again this Saturday. Conversations, we still meet regularly with Colonial Williamsburg to understand the challenges and the crowds, and then I'll be going back to the board to discuss those challenges and how we may allocate resources appropriately to meet those demands.
Great, thank you. I just think that, being public transportation just being such a critical piece of infrastructure in any town. And I just want to say thank you and to everyone, on the team that you're working with for this transition because, it's important. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Questions for me?
Is there a motion?
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 23-23.
Second?
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, takes us to item D, which is consideration and action regarding a contract for fabrication and installation of downtown parking and pedestrian wayfinding signage. Mr. Witt again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This project has a story behind it, not as long as the Regional Sports Center, but a lengthy story. So it started in 2020 with the first round of our Tourism Development Fund grants. Some of the businesses downtown had requested that the EDA look into some improved wayfinding signage. We have the regional wayfinding signage that starts on the interstate and moves into the town and the counties, or the city and the counties. But they were interested in improving the wayfinding signage to actually get our visitors and guests to parking spaces downtown, and then once they leave their car, to all the assets and shops and restaurants that are downtown. So actually, the businesses on Prince George Street applied to the Tourism Development Fund for this, and funding was granted to the EDA to hire a consultant and design wayfinding system and move forward into implementation. So that happened in 2020 at the end of the year. Merge, which is a nationally renowned wayfinding design consultant, was hired after a public procurement process. And they worked with the public and stakeholder groups, as well as staff worked with those groups as well. We had public input meetings. We had dozens of stakeholder meetings. You can imagine how many stakeholders there are downtown that use and work on the signs. We also did a public input survey once we had 3 designs, and it was unanimous, the design that the public chose. Last year, the City Council approved that design, and so we applied for the second round of tourism development funds to actually fabricate and install, and we were successful. Council awarded those funds. So now we're ready to award a contract to fabricate and install the signs, and just wanted to briefly show you what the signs look like. And so this was the influence of the character of the city, the elements of existing signage that went into the design. And here you can see kiosks as well as pedestrian signs. Here you can see the signs that you would use from your vehicle, from your car, to actually reach the public parking areas. And then a kiosk that looks like paper but actually has a digital foundation, so can be easily changed. But to respect the historic area, it looks like paper. So that's the kiosk that would be used. So one last point, an element of this design at the request of council was to look at gateway signage and elements as we enter the 7 or 8 entrances to the city. And that was done, but that's really considered public art. So the Williamsburg Art Council has taken over that element of the project. So our request today does not include that. It just includes the signage that I showed you being fabricated and installed. So we went through public procurement, and we asked you to authorize the city manager to sign a contract with the lowest responsive bidder.
Thank you, Mr. Witt. Yeah, this has been a long time coming as well, and one that's much needed. I really liked the design and the ability to change them as circumstances change. So looking forward to getting this going, and obviously this has been through the process of the grant review committee, and there's been several stages of approval. So I look forward to supporting this, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, Michelle, would you have an estimate on when the project would be complete?
Great question, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'll have to get back to you.
Okay.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I remember being on some of those calls when we were first looking at the different designs, so it is nice to see this step taking place. And I also think one of the key factors is what the mayor brought up, is having the flexibility as things change. I think that's one thing that sort of kept us from moving forward, is everyone was afraid, well, what happens if this business changes, our parking changes? So flexibility is key. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for this. I'm excited to support. I have a quick question, because I often, when I'm walking or biking the historic area, find usually a couple of tourists who are new to the area, like debating where the cheese shop is, because they're looking at the map of the wayfinding signage. They can't tell. So I have advised people, randomly over the years, I know that these will be great for sending out notifications of events that are upcoming and giving some wayfinding guidance, particularly speaking to the ones that are electrified and editable. Can you speak towards their capabilities with a map?
With the map,
Just
there are
of the historic
kiosks.
area?
Sure, there are maps that will show you within a 5-minute stroll, what is closest to you. So there's one in the upper right corner
upper right,
there, you
that's a
can
good
see
picture,
it.
too.
So identifying, you can see the university campus, the historic area, and the municipal area. But the center of that map will change depending where that kiosk is, so it shows you the details within a 5-minute stroll. Much like they have in London, England, they do it that way, so it doesn't clutter the map. You can just see
Yeah.
5-minute stroll. So that's the idea.
That's great, because right now it is the multi-block span of the Merchant Square.
Exactly.
So, very good to know. Thank you.
Sure.
Motion?
So I move that City Council award the bid and authorize the city manager to execute a contract for the fabrication and installation of downtown parking and pedestrian wayfinding signage to Right Light, Inc. for $485,144.
Second.
Mr. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Item E is consideration and action regarding the proposed resolution 23-24 for the appointment of a fire marshal. Chief Snyder.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pons, Vice Mayor Dent, and rest of City Council members. Just some housekeeping this afternoon for you guys for our fire marshal's position. Earlier this year, I had transferred Chief Middlebrook, who's been serving as our fire marshal since May of 17, back to operations, and he's been doing both roles for a couple of months, more than a couple of months. And we did a recruitment process this fall, and Chief Lamb, who previously served with James City, was the preferred selected candidate. Kenny started with us November 6th, so just last month. And what we're asking you guys to do under the Code of Virginia is City Council must appoint him as a fire marshal for him to be able to exercise the powers that are granted to him within Virginia law. Kenny comes to us from James City County with 24 years of experience, both in fire and EMS operations, served as their fire marshal in the county for the last 3 years. And I'm super excited to have him on our team, has a tremendous amount of experience, and certainly has the technical expertise to answer any questions that we have for our community, and will serve them well as our fire marshal. So ask your consideration to his appointment to the fire marshal. Any questions I'm happy to answer, or Ms. Shelton, and Kenny is here, looking very pretty in front of you all as well.
You had me up until the pretty part. Kidding. Well, it's exciting to be able to take this action today, and thank you, Mr. Lamb, Chief Lamb, for being with us. I'm glad you were able to find something so close to home, so you didn't have to travel too far, so we're excited to have you.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Yep. Thank you. Glad to have you.
Good timing, Mr. Lamb. Welcome.
Your motion?
So I move that City Council adopt Resolution 23-24.
Second?
Second.
McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons? Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay. Next is consideration and action regarding ordinance 23-08, amending the city code to add section 10-86 prohibiting camping on public property, and section 10-87 prohibiting sitting and laying down on sidewalks or right-of-ways, so as to block the right-of-way, and limit and impede free passenger thereon. So, sorry about reading that so poorly, but Shelton, or who are we going to? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm not Chief Snyder, but I'm going to kick us off here.
One second before you get started. We did make one change to this from what was posted originally. So the version that you're acting on today does not include the revision to the loitering section of the code. This is the smaller subset.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. So I thought I would start and give an overview about what the Human Services Department does and the services we offer folks that have housing needs, and then I'll pass it over to Chief Dunn and Battalion Chief Fensky to wrap up the conversation and discussion today. So when addressing housing needs for our community, it takes a multidisciplinary approach, right? All of our departments have to work together, and we do so very well. We meet on a regular basis, we problem solve, creative in our solutions, and so just to try to find a solution for those that are struggling with housing. For my department, we have a resource navigator, I have an emergency assistance coordinator, and then the social work team. And they address resources or housing needs for our city residents. We take walk-ins on a daily basis, and it's definitely increased recently. And then my staff are on call after hours. And so when we meet with individuals that don't have housing, we do a comprehensive assessment of their needs and resources, and then we provide assistance and brainstorm options that are available. When we meet with folks that have minimal or no income, our first step is really to talk about family members, relatives, friends, anyone they may know where we can make that connection. And we'll make those phone calls with them and see if there's a way for us to reunite those folks. And so we'll provide transportation. We've purchased bus tickets, train tickets, plane fare, whatever it takes to reunite folks with their family. If we're unable to find family or friends, then we look at our shelter options, so the Cotham Church shelter that is open right now, or other shelters in the state. So our department will work on finding transportation so that someone can find those shelter resources and get there safely. For those individuals who are unsheltered, who don't come into the office, don't walk in or don't initiate that contact, we'll go out. So, for example, we had, about a month ago, the police department notified us about someone that was unsheltered. So my staff member went out with the officer, found this gentleman who had lost his job because the business closed and couldn't afford housing anymore. So we found emergency shelter, he got employment, and now he's paying for housing on his own. I've personally been out to the coffee shop and had coffee with someone and talked about options and family and really just had those hard conversations about how do we find you a safe place to go. We just this week, our Public Works Department had notified us, and we went out with an officer to find someone who was unsheltered and intervened and had a good outcome there. So those are positive examples of how we can intervene and find solutions, but many times we're faced with a refusal of services or shelter. And so those are the more challenging situations, but we still respond, still take that time to really educate somebody about the options or resources available. But we know many people that are unsheltered face significant mental health issues, and so, and we know that we can't force somebody to receive treatment or follow a service plan or seek shelter. If they have capacity, they can make that decision. So, but we're persistent, and we'll educate and work with our partner agencies as well. As you all know, we have a lot of agencies, nonprofits, and churches in town, and so we work closely with them to combine resources, brainstorm, be creative, and how we can find solutions for folks. Our office also uses the Homeless Management Information System, which is a software where we can see the history of assistance that somebody's provided, and so agencies and nonprofits enter that information so we can see kind of historically what services have been offered and maybe some services that haven't been offered that we could link them to. So that's been a really good tool for us to use. And then, you know, we also work not only with our city partners, but with our regional partners and our other agencies. So about a year ago, I pulled together Colonial Behavioral Health, who's our mental health provider, and James City County Housing. And so we've been meeting to talk about how we can best link individuals with vouchers and other permanent supportive housing and other housing services for individuals. So that's been a really good collaboration that we've had. So those are just some examples of what we do, and we live this on a daily basis, and we know that it's not a City of Williamsburg struggle, not only a City of Williamsburg struggle. This is something that's happening regionally, statewide, and of course nationwide. So I'm just really proud of the team that we have, and how proactive we have been, and how creative we have been doing that outreach and going out there and really trying to resolve situations on a proactive basis. So I will pass this over to Chief Dunn.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Good afternoon again. Thank you. So over the past couple years, we have seen a shift in what I would call the level of cooperation that we receive when we're dealing with folks who are experiencing some sort of instability in their housing. Previously, when we approached folks who were in this situation, you know, we have little bags that contain water and some other essentials that, as we're approaching folks who are in this situation, that we try to, you know, really extend a very compassionate hand and then try to get them plugged into services and that sort of thing to put them in a better situation. Sometimes a situation that brings us to them, it's some sort of disruption or disturbance that they're creating in the community. But certainly we want to get them help, and so we try to do that. We try to plug them into those services. But unfortunately, what we're seeing is an increase in folks who refuse that help and then refuse what over the years has been, you know, gentle persuasion for them to find some other place to do whatever it is that they may be doing. And so, you know, coming from a position of where this was an often welcome encounter by the folks that we were literally trying to help, now we are met with a bit more defiance and resistance to that offer of help. As our nation has dealt with a global pandemic, uncertain economic times, and that sort of things, it certainly seems that it's exacerbating the situation, not just for us, but for partners across the state and beyond. An early example of this that you guys were involved was when we had a situation at City Square, the green spaces between the library and Stryker, and in fact including the community building, where we had some folks who decided that they were going to begin camping there. And I mean, you know, that's a real nice way of saying that they were going to be living there. And obviously, not only is it unsightly, and it causes some folks to choose to not go there because they're concerned about their own safety, but it also prompted our public works team. Every morning they were cleaning urine and collecting beer bottles and that sort of thing from our overnight visitors. We had one situation where a female who was also experiencing some level of homelessness reported a rape from one of the individuals in that immediate vicinity. So certainly some safety concerns as well. With that area, you guys created a park out of that space, and we were able to set up some hours so that it made it easier for us to move folks along after hours. Another example is the post office. As I think you may be aware, we were having some issues there where a handful of folks decided that was going to be their homeless shelter. And unfortunately, people would go to their post office box at night, and they would be greeted by folks with sleeping bags and other things across the floors of the post office. And the local postal inspector just decided that he was just going to start closing shop at 7 o'clock. Unfortunately, that detracts from the rest of the community, because now if you wanted to check your P.O. box, you can't do that until the next morning. We experienced an individual where, in another instance, where he decided to set up on a bench on Richmond Road in a public space, very visible public space, and he refused to move on. The officers attempted to get him to relocate to someplace else. He had been sleeping there up until mid-morning, I think it was a weekday, but one day. And, ultimately, he really did. He refused to cooperate with us. He was going to remain there. He felt that he had the right to remain there. And fortunately, officers did find some, what I believe was methamphetamine drugs on him. And so ultimately, he was charged with the drugs. But he was not going to move on in spite of receiving some community complaints, and just had his stuff. I mean, he had really taken over this section. We dealt with a similar situation at our train station where, multiple people were sleeping at this location every night. you know, again, 2-3 years ago, we would have asked them to move on, and they would have happily moved on. In this case, they were so defiant. On one occasion, my lieutenant said, well, hey, listen, if you guys don't leave, we're not leaving either. We're going to stay here with you. And the response to our lieutenant was, hey, well, that's great. We feel a whole lot safer with you being here when you're not here. So, I mean, I think that speaks to, while it's a funny story, I think it speaks to the lack of cooperation, if you will, with some of our current tools. Fortunately, working with our city attorney's office and Matt Scalia, who may still be here, we did come up with a situation where we now have trespass authority for the train station, and we are able to get people to move on. Again, the purpose of that authority isn't because we want to arrest as many people as we can. We just want to be able to have the tools to say, hey, you can't be here, you're creating a disturbance, or it's after hours, we don't want any problems, and you have to move on. And so now we have the teeth to be able to do that. I should say, prior to it getting to that point, one of the staff members that worked up there was assaulted and spat on, and ultimately had to get a protective order against one of these individuals, you know, in spite of a number of attempts to intervene from the police department prior to it getting that point. So we're very appreciative to WADA and their assistance with this issue. You know, we've also, I think it's worth pointing out that we've also had an issue with our homeless advocacy groups, COFM. I know we're all, you know, very familiar and very pleased with the job that they do for our community. You know, again, and this goes to the level of cooperation and defiance, if you will, that we're currently experiencing. For many years, probably since COFM has been in existence, there's sort of been this sort of unwritten rule between us and COFM that if there's a need for us to reach someone who's in the shelter, that we very gently go to staff and we ask them to go into the shelter to grab the person and bring them out, because as you might imagine, we're dealing with a population that doesn't necessarily welcome law enforcement and law enforcement presence typically. And so it's been a really great situation, and we've been happy to accommodate that. We've not had any issues with that. But the dynamic has flipped, and now there are staff members and volunteers who are not feeling safe working with the population. And so in an effort to be able to create a somewhat safer environment at our shelters, we've met with the director and her team, and we've come up with a strategy to, they actually now hire off-duty police officers from James City and Williamsburg, depending on the location of the shelter. And the first 4 hours per night, there is a police officer sitting there welcoming everyone that comes in. So, I mean, I think that's a good example of the shift that not just that we as the police department are seeing, but even our homeless advocacy groups are seeing. As you might imagine, this costs COFM quite a bit of money to be able to do this, but it's that important to them so that they can keep their volunteers on board and not have problems at their shelter. So we are working extremely hard to help manage these issues and these circumstances, and continue to have a safe and vibrant and welcoming community for anyone who wants to come to Williamsburg, including this vibrant, this vulnerable population. But with this legislation, it certainly gives us some tools that we think would be valuable, so that we have a situation, so that the situation I think that really was the tipping point was we had an individual who decided to set up his camp. And I mean, literally multiple tents setting up, creating an igloo type tent structure. And he decided that Monticello and Ironbound would be a good location for that. Very prominently displayed, but also much of a distraction to passing motorists. And officers, go to him early in the morning and speak with him, ask him to move on. He absolutely is not going to move on. And fortunately, we again came back and met with the city attorney, and a couple hours later, we're able to formulate a strategy to really encourage him to move on. That individual right now is a little bit further down Monticello near the post office in James City County. So doesn't want the services that might be available to him, but certainly is, I think, going to continue to be in a public space, not in Williamsburg, but in James City, and until actions like this are taken. So we do appreciate you affording us some additional tools. I just think it's real important to stress that, our goal isn't to charge as many people as we can. In fact, we don't want to charge anyone. We want to be able to now more persuasively encourage people to be, I would say back where we were a few years ago, we're a bit more compliant with us when we have individuals who are choosing to camp or otherwise take up residence in an area. where they're causing a distraction or a disturbance or otherwise detracting from the quality of life for the rest of our community. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Chief.
Hello. Members of council, I am pleased to provide an update on the progress of our mobile integrated healthcare team, or sometimes referred to as MIH. So I've reported to you guys since we updated the program in 2020 when I previously held that position as the MIH coordinator. But since then, we've kind of added some additional services as we've grown. So we added the inclusion of Colonial Behavioral Health into our collaborative initiative alongside Human Services and Law Enforcement, as well as our department, the Fire Department. And this has been a unique and impactful step in our commitment to treating the whole patient and enhancing their health outcomes in the community. Over the past year, the MIH team has continued to grow and adapt our evolving needs of the community. One of our significant discoveries during our ongoing assessment has been the concerning rise in the number of unsheltered populations. Many of them, as Wendy pointed out, are grappling with multiple medical and behavioral health conditions. Recognizing the magnitude of this issue, we formed a dedicated work group to develop a proactive and holistic approach to give them those wraparound services and really, like we said, identify and treat the entire patient from their mental health to their medical health. In response to the escalating challenge, Herb Williams, Brittany Horak, and I led a coordinated effort to patrol the city, engage with the unsheltered population, and provide the essential support bags that Chief Dunt was talking about. Our actions underscored our commitment to understanding and meeting the immediate needs of those facing homelessness, and simultaneously we also identified that there was a need to create a platform for information sharing between the MIH team to ensure that we had a unified response and we weren't duplicating efforts. Our proactive approach garnered attention from various community stakeholders, including VPRJ, Communities of Faith Ministries, Riverside Doctors Hospital, House of Mercy, and more. Their outreach expressed the urgency of the situation, detailing the impact of the influx of the unsheltered individuals on their operations and deteriorating behaviors that affected their service delivery. In response to these concerns, the MIH team organized a joint meeting with all of these stakeholders, allowing each organization to share their top 3 challenges related to the unsheltered population. Through this collaborative effort, we identified common challenges and worked towards offering wraparound services and continuity of care. This reflects our commitment to addressing the root causes of homelessness and providing comprehensive support. While our initiatives have been effective with individuals who are actively seeking assistance, we acknowledge that there has been a persistent challenge in encouraging follow-through with services and managing generally unsafe demeanors towards our team members. As we continue our mission to support the unsheltered populations, it is clear that we need additional tools to support and further enhance our capabilities. We appreciate the Council's ongoing support and remain dedicated to finding innovative solutions that will bolster our network of support and help us to achieve our goal of comprehensive assistance. Thank you for your attention and support.
Thank you. Certainly do appreciate all that information that you 3 have shared with us today, and certainly as it relates to the question at hand, it's good to have a reminder for council and all the community to really hear all that we try to do to help everyone in our community. And so I applaud you for your steadfast commitment to everyone, even those who are most in need. So thank you for that. I don't have any questions or thoughts. Chief Dunt?
Yeah, thank you for the information, and as the mayor stated, it's really appreciate all the effort that's put into providing services for the unsheltered. And looking at this, it provides an additional tool, and Chief, as you pointed out, that it's not an enforcement issue. You don't want to go out and arrest everyone, but just gives you another tool in the toolbox to try to solve a situation. The one question, Ms. Evans, may be for you, and real specific, but because often when we're talking to people in the community, they think that Williamsburg doesn't have this problem. And I was just wondering and generally, what's the number of unsheltered, just a good guess of what you deal with in Williamsburg?
That is a specific question. I will say that the region, and actually the state, once a year does a homeless count, and I'm going to get the date wrong, but I think it's January 25th into 6th. And we have teams of folks that go out in each city and actually look for camps and count the number of unsheltered folks. And again, that's usually it's an underestimation. So, I mean, we've had a few each year that typically are counted. I would say how many in the city are unsheltered, and again, it's very fluid by the night. So 0 to 10? Would you say that?
And if I could qualify that, unsheltered meaning necessarily on the streets?
Yes.
Or in a hotel for a few nights might not be counted as far as being unsheltered?
Yeah, well, actually, more about unsheltered in general, what you deal with as the number in a population, whether it's someone that you are finding shelter for or someone that you're not able, that's reluctant to take the offer.
Yeah, so I would say up to 10 would be outside with no hotel and in the woods or on the street.
Okay.
It would be the estimated number.
And many of those have been offered services, but choose to live in that manner.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I think, kind of to the point that, there are those who are unsheltered, meaning literally on the street, but then many who are in hotels or who are using voucher, offered to them. And so to the point that, Williamsburg, we do, have to look into solutions for these really complicated issues that are in communities all over the country. So I am really struck, and I'm very, very proud to hear about this comprehensive approach, about a holistic approach, and I know that you've been working on the MIH, for a while. I think it's so important, and hearing that there are times when social services will actually be there with, with law enforcement. I think that this kind of multidisciplinary action is really necessary, and I just want to say that, I hope that, thinking creatively, thinking innovation, thinking about why the defiance has increased and what are the root causes of that, and how we might be able as a city to find, I believe in you all so much, to be able to find solutions or ways to move through that defiance, because maybe there's something there that putting our heads together and thinking about resources that might be needed, maybe we can get back to places where that kind of interaction is less like it used to be. So I just want to say thank you for this comprehensive report, and that we know now as a public and as officials, we know that the city is looking at this not with blunt instruments or, we're not going in with sledgehammers when really this is something that, like so many complicated problems, needs very fine scalpels, and looking at how we can really think through the multidimensional problem we have. So thank you again, and I have no other questions.
And I, too, would like to thank you for working together and both in collaboration and cooperation. And sounds like this is another model that other municipalities might look to adopt, because it's not just in our community. I'm sure James City County, York County, and everyone around us is struggling with the same issue. So thank you again.
Thank you all for that report. I mean, really comprehensive across 3 different really important functions of the city. I know addressing the unhoused is a really challenging issue, because in many ways you can have people who've just lost their job and have had bad luck and looking to get back on their feet, or those that might deny services. I mean, truly speaking, this is one of the first things I spoke on for a class as a freshman at William & Mary that made me start to think about how is the city of Williamsburg operating different than just the College of William & Mary. So it's been something that I'm interested in for a long time. To share quickly an anecdote of how well I've seen your departments work together. Back in May, I was walking down Richmond Road and met a gentleman who ended up letting me know he didn't have a place to sleep that night. And within a matter of about 30 minutes, we had a couple officers come to meet him too, who would let me know there's a 24/7-hour member of the Human Services team available for a call, and he was on his way to a hotel with a place to stay that evening. And it was just an amazing show of the city's resources at that point, 10 p.m. on a Friday night. So I was just so proud to get to be in Williamsburg at that moment, even more than usual, because I got to see how much every one of our departments care across both citizen safety and citizen well-being. So I want to commend you all for that front. And also say, I recognize at the same time the need for public safety to include those public spaces. And so I'm in favor of this change that we'll make today, recognizing that we are addressing some of those structural issues that were mentioned. I know a more regional study of some of the effects of homelessness in this area will begin shortly, but also being mindful of some of the safety of our public spaces for the entirety of Williamsburg.
Somebody like to make a motion?
So I believe it was stated that the ordinance is being amended to just include the
So the
camping
version that you
portion.
have is the one from today.
Okay, so 23-08. So I move that City Council adopt ordinance 2308 as drafted.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, next is consideration and appointment to boards and commissions. Before Vice Mayor Dent reads the list of those that are to be appointed, I just want to take a moment to thank all the folks in the community that interviewed for the various different boards and commissions. It's really heartening to see the interest that people have to serve in our community. And just by way of process, when there is a vacancy, we advertise through our social medias, newspapers, word of mouth about vacancies, to try to elicit people's interest and get folks to apply for the boards and commissions. And those that do apply, council meets with each of them as a group to interview them. In addition, particularly in the school board's case, we do have a public hearing, which we did hold last month. And so I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of how we got to this, and now turn it over to the Vice Mayor to make the announcement.
Thank you, Mayor. So there's a few of them here, so bear with me for a moment. I move that the City Council reappoint Christopher McDade and Robert Yule to the Architectural Review Board for terms ending December 31, 2027. Reappoint Melinda Morgan to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a term ending December 31, 2028. Appoint Natalie Miller Moore and Olivia Salyer to the Economic Development Authority for terms ending on December 31, 2027. Reappoint Greg Granger and John Tarley to the Planning Commission for terms ending December 31, 2027. Appoint Howard Bud Phillips to the Planning Commission to fill an unexpired term ending on December 31, 2026. Appoint Amy Chen to the School Board for a term ending December 31, 2027. Appoint Jack Reed to the Virginia Peninsula Public Service Authority for a term ending June 30, 2024, and reappoint Andrew O. Trivett as the alternate to the Virginia Peninsula Public Safe Service Authority for a term ending June 30, 2024.
Second.
Okay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, congratulations, and thank you very much for those that are here, and good luck in your new post. Okay, I don't think we have anything for closed session today, do we, Mr. Vice Mayor? No? So that leads us to adjournment, but before I adjourn, I just want to remind everyone that at 5:30, we are having our One Williamsburg reception here in the Stryker Room in the lobby, and I hope that you all will come back and be a part of that, because part of the presentation, we will be honoring Mr. Bobby Braxton with the 2023 Mace Bearers Award. And for those that don't know him, there he is right there.
And it was recently his birthday.
Yep, I think today is his birthday, right?
It was Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay. Happy belated. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Ms. McKay?
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.